Yeah. How loud is it? Well, I plan on talking. Looks like somebody joined. Hello. My name's Jessica. I am doing a live stream. I'll be making an art collage today. And my setup's a little bit wonky today. As you can see here, I have it listed on Facebook because I actually am live streaming on a camera over here and the computer on here. So if you want to see the different angle, you can go to Facebook, search my name, and I should be showing up there soon. I have to figure out how to make that work. So give me a minute. I have to look at my setup. Okay, it says I'm live on Facebook. I'll see if we have more people joining us. Before I start anything. I don't know if it'll let me do it two ways because I'm on one phone trying to figure it out. And I think it's up on that one. I was just trying to see if I could also get onto it this way. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to worry about trying to reply to messages on Facebook. It's just too hard for me to figure that out. All right, so my name's, let me sit down. Thank you everyone for coming. My name's Jessica, and the process of making collage can be different depending on how you want to do it. But the collage I'm making today is a piggy bank. And the way I do that is I take an image and then I do a couple different filter settings on it so that it gets to these different gradients. You can see that this is pretty light on this end and it's pretty dark on this end. And it allows me to cut out those sections using a knife. Now this one's going to be kind of interesting because this section right here is the same tone as this edge right here, which means this thin edge, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see, because this camera is going to be the hardest one to see it on. But there's this edge right here that's very thin. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to artistically decide how thick or thin I'm going to make that line so that when I'm making that segment, it is noticeable, but at the same time as realistic as possible. I am really excited to do this. This is an art style that I learned in high school. And since I've been starting this back in mid-February, I have a pretty full collection of what I've done since then. This is a cat I did for a friend. This was from a picture where they were sitting next to each other. And so I did the cat on one side and then I did the other cat on the other side. And then this is my friend Brittany. This is my mom. This is me. This is my sister Bethany. This is a daffodil. And this is a spatula. The art style I'm kind of going for is very Andy Warhol-esque. I didn't really set out to do a lot of his style. It just kind of looks that way because of the way the contrast is. I can turn this around so you have a different angle. But I really enjoy doing this kind of work. And as more people funnel in, I'll kind of go over this again. But I really enjoy making art collage. This process takes probably anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. So if you want to like sit the whole thing, you're welcome to. If you need to take a break, get a snack, get a drink, I totally get it. If you just want to listen to me in the background, that's fine. Or I'm just thrilled to have anyone and everyone who wants to show up. So this is my dad, Jim. This is actually the second portrait I did of him. He he didn't like the first one I did, so I redid it and did a little bit of a change of colors and then kind of like a different background to kind of help these colors pop. I have them in a protective sleeve, but normally when they're being displayed, you don't need to put them into the sleeve. You just kind of can put them in a frame. This picture is from another friend of mine, and they let me use their dog as a subject material. This dog's name's Honey. She's a yellow lab, and I just thought she was just so pretty that I wanted to take a picture of her. And the different layers there's 5 different layers of paper, and the very top layer is plastic. We have gone through a couple different processes, but we've come up with plastic lamination that's matte. So if you move the image, it doesn't get shiny. It's just the way it looks. And that's really nice because I didn't want anything that was like really brilliant when I was looking at it. I just wanted something that was nice and smooth. So that's something that I was really pleased about, to find a lamination shop that did matte plastic instead of shiny plastic. So I want to show you the difference between these two images. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Unfortunately, on Facebook, I'm not going to be able to respond simply because of the way my setup is right now. But hopefully next time when I'm able to live stream, I'll be able to have a way of like responding. YouTube's a little bit easier to do that on, but I'm not able to do mobile. I can only do computer web streaming, so that has its own issues. But anyway, so here's the 2 different pictures. This is the one I made using the different 5 layers of paper, and this is the image that I actually cut these pieces of paper to have a similar shape. So where this lighter color area is where this first layer of paper is at. And then it steadily has 4 different gradients after the first one. Now, the technique I'll be using is actually cutting out each layer at a time and then removing that piece of paper, cutting the next layer underneath that, removing that piece of paper, and so on until we get to the 5th layer. Now, it's kind of extensive and a process to get this done, but I really think that the results are stunning. They're very similar to the original picture, but they are significantly more punched in the contrast and the color. And it's just something that I think is really cool. Let me go through the rest of my portfolio so you guys can see what other kind of styles I make. And then I'll start on the process of actually getting this done. It's important to me that I kind of keep things organized, because if I misplace something, I find that very frustrating. I recently got a new ring light tripod, which I'm really excited about. For some reason, it is changing color tones on me, or brightness. I'm not quite sure which one. I think it has something to do with my setup, that something might be accidentally bumping it. But it should be fine as long as as long as it stays on. I just need that extra bit of light. All right, so this is my sister Bethany. Her colors are different than what I chose for both my dad and the dog. And I choose the colors kind of on a feel basis. The biggest thing is making sure that the lightest colors, like white, yellow, and the browns, and the light whites and the pinks, are lighter in contrast than the deeper colors, and making sure they're in the right order. I have a picture in here that is a little bit muddy and kind of hard to see the contrast in. And I kind of wanted to change my style depending on how it looks. So like for this image that I did with the cat, the reason why it isn't as deeply contrasted as maybe something that has some black in it is because I wanted to try a new style where I only do the top 2 to 3 layers instead of doing all 5. Now, you get a lot of definition with the 5 layers, which is really nice. But for some of the images, I felt like it was too much or just wasn't necessary. And that's why I went with a little bit less. Now, in this picture compared to the last one, this picture has a lot of black in it. This picture has blue as its deepest color, which means it's kind of just a little bit more colorful to me. But at the same time, the contrast between the brown, the light blue, and the yellow, and this kind of section right through here, it feels just a little washed out. Like I feel like I needed to have a deeper brown or a deeper light blue, but this is what I have. I work with construction paper. It's something that is very colorful. I don't know a lot of other colorful paper other than like cardstock, but that's a much thicker paper. Construction paper is a little bit thinner, which makes it easier to cut through. And so I really utilize that in my art making. This is my dog Daisy. Her colors were kind of picked because of how spontaneous and rambunctious she is. And for today's collage, let me put this aside. We had in the original source material for the image, it's a yellow piggy bank. I know piggy banks are kind of usually like pink or sometimes orange. I've seen red piggy banks, but a yellow one's kind of unique to me. And so for its colors, I kind of wanted to preserve the uniqueness of its yellow pigment. And so for the lightest shade, which is this edge and this corner of this paper here, it's going to be white. The body of the actual piggy bank, however, is going to be yellow, a little bit of orange, this nice, fun blue teal color, and then for the darkest areas, it's going to be black. These should make a really good contrasting image. And I'm really looking forward to making this and having you guys watch. So the way I make this is I have the first picture is actually one I'm going to cut on. So I'm going to take my pen and highlight the areas that I want to make sure that I focus on. This area right here that's kind of bumpy, I don't know if you can see it, but this area right here isn't a sharp line. And so I'll have to make a judgment of where to cut my segment here, because like this line right here, I don't know if you can see it, but this is a nice edge, but where this kind of fades into here, it's not so nice. It's kind of more I'd say lacy. And so I'll have to kind of decide which section to put that line at, because you can't do a lot of squiggling, because this is really, really, really hard to cut out. So I'll have to make a judgment as I'm cutting this where I'm going to cut that out. So reference picture, cutting picture, and then a spare. I've had it happen before where I went to cut something and I cut it wrong, or the pieces didn't quite line up. And so what I'll do is I'll take the extra piece, lay it on top of what I had been cutting before, and use that as a spare so that way I could still cut and make the image come out. So I'm going to set that off to the side. I only need one image for this right now. And I have done this before. I have made a huge mistake before. But the second most important thing is not to cut, not to cut the first layer. I've done this before where I've stacked all 5 layers underneath my top piece of paper, taped everything together, got it on here, and I started cutting, and then I realized I didn't have anything to put my piece of paper on because I had accidentally started cutting it. So this piece of paper, the top layer, the one that's white, the one that we're cutting out first, gets left alone. That doesn't get cut on. So I'm going to put it over here and leave it alone. So the colors we'll be cutting out actually on top of is we're going to take this section that's supposed to be white, and that's what we're cutting out of this second layer, so that when we layer our second layer on top of our first layer, the white pigment of that first sheet will be poking through where the holes are from that cutting we did. And then we'll just kind of repeat that process over and over and over again until we get a finished product. There's going to be a certain point in this process where you're going to see like hints of a finished pig or a finished image, and you're going to go, is it finished? Is it done? Is it going to be okay? And I always have that moment whenever I'm making this stuff where I go, do I stop here or do I keep going? And most of the time it's keep going, because the contrast really needs to be there for the finished result. So this is just regular masking tape. The reason why I have it is because I need something to hold these corners down. There may be a different way to do this. I'm sure there is, but this is the way I do it. This, like I said, is something I learned from a high school teacher. I don't know where he got it from. The way Andy Warhol did his stuff was all like silk screen and just painting. So this looks a lot like that, but the process is not at all the same. So the way I actually get this image is I'll take a photograph, or I'll find a photograph, and then I'll use a software to create a high contrast image, and then I'll take another software and take what was a grayscale image and push those limits and reduce the color contrast so there's only 5 segments. So I'm going to outline where the first layer is. It's this white section here. It kind of bleeds into the edge of this paper. And so I'm going to draw an edge. I'm not used to doing this upside down, but it should be fine. And then another edge here, so that you kind of get a sense that there's like a line, because this is kind of sitting on a box. And then I will extend this edge up here to kind of bring it in a little bit. And then we will cut, or rather we will leave this corner. Yeah, we'll cut that out. Cut that corner out to just about there. And then same to here. We have like a little edge there. And then we cut this whole corner out, because it's the same so this first cut's not going to be a lot of material. It's just this little section and this little section. It's going to be the second layer that we're going to actually remove all this other stuff, but I'll wait to outline those areas on the next cut. I've done this before where I've accidentally like, I'm going to highlight everything, and then like I get confused which layer I'm cutting on because they are kind of similar. So I'm going to start cutting now. Oh, I forget that the reason why I had to kind of stop doing this was because I start pushing on my knuckle just a little too hard when I'm cutting through this stuff, and my hand arthritis starts to get pretty bad, and I hate that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bind this top joint. I have other tape, but this seems to work fine for the purpose I need it for. All right. It just makes it so I don't flex it out this way and I don't flex it out that way. It just kind of keeps it kind of rigid, and that helps. My friend was mentioning that sometimes people who do a lot of hand work, like what's it called? Crochet, get compression gloves for their fingers. And I don't need all of my fingers compressed. So, I mean, I guess is there like a compression finger sleeve? I don't know. But we're going to just kind of utilize what we have. So the reason why I leave all the other pieces of paper underneath this top sheet is that I'm actually going to be taking out all of these pieces. So there we go. That was our first cut. And so you can see the cutting board underneath. And so those layers, the reference picture, the yellow layer, the orange layer, blue layer, and black layer, garbage. We don't need them. I have to go get a garbage bowl. I'll be right back. All right. In theory, I could make a negative image, one that has the complete opposite of what's getting made here. If I were to save and reassemble all the pieces, I don't have the mental capacity right now to try to make that. It would be a lot different than what I do right now, which is subtracting from the pieces of paper. I would have to figure out how to like reassemble. I don't know. But in theory, it's possible. All right, so we're going to cut this section down here, the edge along the box. Sometimes it's helpful to kind of like have my fingers nearby, not to get cut, but to kind of hold the paper in place, because it kind of wants to bunch up in front of where the cutting edge is at, and that can be make it more difficult for me to have a nice clean cut. The reason why I'm trying to give such a full description of everything is that this particular type of art style I haven't seen a lot of. I've seen a lot of like Bob Ross doing painting. There's other things like sculpting and clay work, and I feel like that's pretty common. But this particular one isn't so common. I would love to see other artists doing more paper styles like this, there are different kinds of collage. Like you have the ones that have like ripping out of a magazine and then creating like another face from that, or creating as like a scene. And I think that's also very imaginative, and it takes a lot of organization to remember what colors you saw on a page. I mean, like you would have to create a whole catalog just to figure out how to make that kind of art, which is totally fascinating. Um, but I don't see a lot of photos that are already made being made into um, this kind of style. So um, I'm really grateful for those of you who are attending, so you can kind of see what kind of this will look like. The other reason why I'm being descriptive is that I know not everybody is going to be directly watching this, and so it's just kind of helpful to have a way to kind of listen as it's going along. And I'm happy to like share that with you. So one of the things that I'm kind of running into is that my knife didn't cut through the the third layer quite all the way, and I'm kind of having to either recut it or very gently tear it so that I can remove that piece. I can leave it and come back to it because I will be in this area um, successively, concurrently. I'll be here again. Um, I just, if it's possible, I like to get all of the pieces of paper out where I've already been. So that way, I can kind of just leave that area alone. All right. I'm going to readjust this layer because it's peeking out. Hopefully I can get it tucked back in and I can just go on. Well, I guess I don't need to really worry about that. Okay, so we have cut out for the first layer all the parts that are supposed to be the lightest layer, the white part. So I'm going to now untape one edge, one side, and try to very gently slide out that white layer, or what will be the white layer from the yellow layer. Why is it sticking? Okay. Now, what I find really compelling about this is that you never know what it's going to look like when you first have the first segment. So we just cut out the white layers. You can kind of see a pointed edge here, and then the border from where we didn't cut out and we left. And so that's very similar to what was here before. The next part would be to glue this down and then cut out the second layer. I think I'm gonna try to leave that for now and then come back to that, just so I can kind of show you what the next stage of this process is. Let me put it like that. No, I want it this way. But it's just cutting out, gluing, and then some parts of it are like reassembly and guessing, because they're like, I guess this goes there. Because once you cut it out, it's loose, it's free. And that's kind of where it also comes to be an artistry element. It's like, where does this go? Okay, so the next highest level of color is this section on the nose, the flank, this background, this portion on the box, this light shadow portion on the front part of this face, and then the section up here on the ear. So we're just going to focus on that. The next darker layer is this section right here that's kind of a darker gray, the gray here. And I do find it's interesting that it looks brighter here, and it looks like it would be part of this layer here, but it's not. If you were to cut this out, you would have, uh, it would be in the wrong section, and it would look flatter than you would want it to be. So I'm gonna take my pen and just highlight the areas that we want to cut out next. And depending on how much or how free, I say free, like a free piece, like this edge right here is dark. And so in order for me to like maintain that edge, I am going to have to probably attach it to either this edge or this edge, which means it's going to be thicker than it normally would be in a picture. But in order for it to be um, easier to just kind of like keep there, I'm going to probably thicken the line, and that just makes my life easier. I had to do this particular image a couple different times in the software that I use because when I was doing it as a high schooler, we had access to Adobe, and Adobe, bless its little heart, has a lot of different software things that I couldn't tell you how to use anymore. We had it for like a month and a half as a tool. I mean, this was back in 2006, so I don't know if we had like a grant or something that let us use it, or if it was just a standard software. But um, the teacher was like, "I don't know how to use this. I don't know much about it, but if you guys could figure out how to use it, that's awesome." And so the little that I tried to do was fine. And I used to do this where I turned the image black and white, then I could adjust the histogram so it could be like really high on like contrast on the white, and then like cut out the like the noise in the middle. And so I'd have my, you could dedicate like, how many channels, how many color channels do you want? Do you want 5, 6, or 7? You could go anywhere from that to like 12 or 50 if you wanted to. And it's just those different channel gradients. I don't remember how to do that. I use some online software that is free to use. Hallelujah. But that also means that I kind of have to like guess where the reference image is going to be. And so if that software doesn't quite work, because like I can't quite get enough, because like the hardest part in this image that I was having is getting the highlights of its little nose and making sure that this portion right here wasn't the same size as the highlights on its little nose. Because it looked like it had a third nostril, and I didn't want that. And so I had to do a couple different reference images for the software to go, "Oh, you want me to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, I really do want you to do that." So perseverance, you got to have a lot of perseverance in art. You never know where it's going to take you. And that's another magical thing I love about art, is that you can pick the colors, you can pick when you're going to do it, but you don't actually know what the finished result's going to look like until it's done. That's kind of like cooking. I feel like cooking's the same way. Like you can have all the knowledge and training in the world, but if that day for you just doesn't have it in the cards, it's not going to work out. But some days you're like, I don't know why that worked out. It was delicious. It was really good, and it's still a mystery. But hopefully somewhere in between the guesswork, there's an amount of skill that can be gleaned and honed so that you can have more successful days than bad days. And to me, that's really magical and special. All right, so after I have highlighted the nose, his foot, his body, the edge of his ear. Oh, there's another section I need to get. is this other edge right down here. And it's important to kind of like do an overview of your image before you start cutting, because I have done that where I'm like, oh yeah, I got everything, of course I did, and then I have missed a section, and I get really sad about that because because it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look like excellent either. All right, so I'm going to start on this edge down here. Yep, I don't know why my camera light has decided to change it to another color tone. Looks cool. It's going to look really dynamic in different colors for this video, but I wish it would just stay where I selected it. All right. So the reason why it looks like there's two different colors here is because there are two different colors here. We still have this layer from before. This is the 5th layer, and this is the 4th layer. And as I start taking these pieces out, it goes back to that 5th layer. So there's a couple different projects that I'll do. This one shouldn't be too complicated, so we shouldn't be here too long. The more complicated ones are ones I have to do like fur on, or different like let's see, what's another really, like faces. Faces are hard. Faces have a lot of divots and shadows to them. And if the source image is too zoomed in or zoomed out, I feel like faces can lose a lot in translation. Also, depending whether or not the person is standing in front of a light, like let's say that the sun is behind their back and it's cast their face into shadow, I feel like that's like really, really hard to get a good clear image like this, because this image has clearly defined a light side and a deep dark side. And so as it's going through these gradients, you get a lot of the shapes that you need because you're having to cut them out. If the whole face, let's say that this nose right here and this eye were also casting a shadow because there was another light coming from this side, I wouldn't have a light side and a dark side. I would have somewhere like a dark in the middle and then two light sides. And that would be really hard because I wouldn't really know where to start on that because they're all relatively the same shade. That's where that's where I kind of struggle with source material. It's important for me to kind of have some control, and I want to do portraits for people. I think it'd be really cool if I was able to do like Mother's Day gifts or anniversary gifts where I could make a collage of a family member for them or a pet that may have passed away, because that to me is really meaningful. Most of the time, though, it's people who are submitting their art to me, like their photos or a video, and I kind of have to go, well, I can try to fix the image so that way it's more contrast, but I may have to really think about whether or not I can take that challenge on. Because it looks simple, but there are definitely some wrinkles if we can't get enough details in the final image. Because you want your relative or your dog, or if you're doing, let's say a wedding cake. Let's say you really wanted a picture of your wedding cake. You really want your item to be as defined and as possible. All right, so I kind of use my finger to go over and feel where I made the cuts. I cut everything. I even did the little wiggly parts in here, but I didn't cut the back part of it. Okay. So it's really fun when we have like connected pieces like this. All right, so let me decide. Do I want to cut that or leave that? I guess it got to be cut, so we can leave it as a defining element. Okay, so I didn't draw this out earlier, but this needs to come out. And that line there. All right, so we kind of have a floating edge of the box. Now, I said earlier about floating stuff. So this edge right here is supposed to be darker than this part right here and this part right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take that little piece right there, this little piece, and I'm going to line it up on that segment right there to remind me that that's supposed to get glued right there because it's part of the image. Okay, so we got all this. Oh, did I cut out the nose? No, I did not cut out the nose. Okay, so the really fun part is after you've cut everything, you get to take the segments off. Okay, so top photo, second layer, third layer, fifth layer. And as you cut down, these layers are easier to take out because the knife has a better angle at cutting. Yeah, we leave that. And I just like how that looks so vivid because everything else is black and white, and all of a sudden you have like a huge like patch of color. I think it's visually striking. It's kind of like making a puzzle in reverse. Instead of having all the pieces together, you're taking it apart. I mean, you kind of are putting it together later, but first you got to break it to fix it. All right. So we cut that out. We're going to take out the orange layer now. So as you remember, we already did the yellow part from over here. And now this is what that looks like on top of that. Now, just to keep things complicated, because I'm really good at that, we're going to pause here for a second and glue these layers together so that way they can't run away. You may be asking me, what do you use for glue? And my answer is a glue stick. I love glue sticks. And I chose this particular style of glue stick versus like the elementary ones that like are purple and then are supposed to like dry to clear, because some of these colors of construction paper don't dry to clear. It kind of made some of the green ones that I had dry to like a muddled green. And I was like, oh, great. Now I have like a painting and a collage at the same time, which if I had wanted that, I mean, that would have been an interesting thing to experiment with. But it's not what I had wanted, so it came out in different colors. Okay, so to glue this together, I have found that more is better, and you just do it. Normally I listen to music. I'm not quite sure what the rules are for streaming for Facebook or YouTube. If you can listen to something in the background, I don't know if that's considered a strike because there's a lot of copyright infringement nonsense that, you know, I can't really comment on. So maybe I did a little. Let me see. Art is like cooking some days. It's just not in the cards. Story of my cooking life. Oh, that's funny. Thank you for commenting. Uh, uh, yeah. So I can't really listen to anything right now because I would do it on my headphones, but I am trying to use my other phone as a way to like have a second type of streaming service, streaming. So I can share this. Okay, so the whole face of this now is covered in glue, and so we just line up the edges. Now, most of the time, my pieces of paper have to be cut down to 8.5 by 11 inches. And construction paper doesn't come by 8.5, 11 inches. So I have a paper cutting tool to help me get these down to the right size. I'm not particularly sure why paper comes in different sizes. It just does. I mean, paper's a magnificent thing to have. Hooray, paper. We use it for so many things. Books are nice. Toilet paper's nice. Money's nice. Though technically, I guess money's made from like linen, or some types of money are made from linen. I know we have a lot of stuff embedded with plastic too. So I know can paper be made from plastic and still be called paper? That's a thought for you. I don't know. All right, so that glue stick's empty. Bye bye. I have more. I typically go through a glue stick per collage, sometimes more depending on how detailed or how particularly obnoxious that image was to make. If there's a lot of little details that are hard to like pin down, or a lot of open, like this has a lot of coverage space that I have to go over. So that will change the need for glue stick coverage. I am hoping that my new phone will come tomorrow and that I can use that for future videos. The camera I'm using for over here is off of my current cell phone, but we have some issues with it. One, the phone itself stopped being able to charge via like a plug-in cable, and so it's actually using a wireless charger that is, and I kid you not, wrapped around using a scrunchie to it, so it will continue to stay charged as I'm filming. Hopefully, my new phone will not have that issue, and we can just, plug it in and go. All right, so careful. All right. I am really looking forward to building my audience so that way I can do more custom collages. I think that that would be amazing. Currently, these are collages that I've been doing for the fun of it, which they are definitely fun. But I'm looking to find more meaningful, oh goodness, more meaningful content. Piggybanks would make a really good poster, I think, if you like that sort of like decoration. And like I have that spatula one I did, objects that have value in their usage. But to get to make a picture of a loved one is really nice. All right, so this line right here, we're gonna add, let's use that reference picture. Okay, so I did it too far forward. Yeah, it's really important that the glue dries on clear because I tend to overglue and go to places that doesn't need it. All right, so that's the line for that box. I think I have it on upside down. I will need to flip this the other way. No, do I have it the right way? Well, I'm fine. Good enough. And half the time here, it's like, who's gonna know if I didn't put the glue and the paper in the exact same spot for the original image? It's close. All right. So now that we have those two layers, I'm going to let that dry. And we're going to come back to our image so that we can do what I think is a little bit more difficult. So now that we've cut the first layer and the second layer, our third layer is going to be this next gray in the image. And so it's going to be the nostrils of the pig, the top of the nose, this inner portion of the ears, and this kind of grainy, I don't know, can you tell? Kind of grainy background that has like a gradient to it. I'll have to make a line and decide where that grain ends. And so it looks a lot more popped out than it is right now. So we're going to do something that seems kind of counterintuitive, and that is this eye and these two segments of the ear I'm going to cut out. Now the reason why I'm going to do that is even though that this is not the right layer for me to cut those out, they are attached and floating on this piece of paper. And so what I'll do is I will save these pieces underneath instead of throwing them away. I will save them so that when we get to that layer that they're supposed to actually be cut out on, I can put them where they actually belong. Gonna wrap my finger up some more. It's not quite tight enough. It's beginning to hurt. Okay. Well, for those of you in the comments, I have a couple questions for you if you have time. I like to eat button candy. That's something of a enjoyable snack for me. My question for you is there an old-fashioned candy or snack that you enjoy or wish that they would bring back? You know, I think it's like those old Rupert Barrel candies. Sometimes they taste good to me. Sometimes they wouldn't taste good to me. Some people really like those and miss them. You can find them sometimes, but it's been a while since I've seen them. So I'm going to show you a trick that I use to make sure that these pieces that are floating go back to where they're supposed to be. And that as I take this reference picture that we would normally throw away because we got rid of this layer underneath. Look at that pretty blue. So pretty. And I actually line it up with the layer below it. Put some glue down. Line it back up. I gotta get more glue on that side. Have to do it kind of quickly because otherwise it will try to bond with the layer underneath. And I take these pieces and I stick them in. We don't need that anymore. So we got one eye, at least. Don't need that. Okay, so you guys may have seen my videos before, but one of the layers that are my favorite to do is the fourth layer. The fourth layer to me has the most character to it. The fifth layer is where we put all those last minute details in to really define everything. But this fourth layer just makes everything so intriguing to me. All right, are you ready? You can kind of see everything start to come out. Let's see. Yep, everything's where it's supposed to be. I'm going to get a pair of scissors. I'll be right back. All right. Let's glue this layer down. Okay. Looks like we got most of that sitting where it's supposed to. So we've got 4 layers on here: the white layer, the yellow layer, the orange layer, and this blue layer. And then this 5th layer is going to define the foot, the side of the face, the eyes, and this back ear over here. Oh, and just a little hint on the edge of this box down here. Some images have darker contrast and like more shadow. This one has it on the 4th layer as most of its color gradient. So I was using my scissors to shape this eye. Oops, too much force. I have 2 X-Acto knives depending on what I want. I'm using my more comfortable grip tonight. We're going to leave that to the side. We're going to use the paper to help me line that up. But we're almost done. We only have this black section, this little corner, little nostril here, and that little line, and then the border that goes around, and then we're done. This was a rather straightforward collage to do tonight. I didn't want anything too complicated for my first stream. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm hoping to do more of these in the future. We'll use the paper for that again, just make sure we get the right angle on that. Oh, I forgot the little nose. Let's not forget the little nose. Okay. It's right there. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, just close enough. There's horseshoes in here. Okay, look at that. Yeah, it looks really good. Just get the line on that box. And then we're done. All right, so I'm gonna go get the original image right here. I'm gonna make a mess. This is the original image. This is what it looks like in color. And I'm gonna go get the piggy bank that started this whole thing. And there you have it, folks. From image of a piggy bank printed out into a collage. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good night.